The enemy without. Now that we have banged our pots and pans and lit diyas and candles for those 9 holy minutes, the coronavirus stands completely defeated. If there are few still around, a couple of go corona go corona should do the trick. The virus already deafened and blinded would simply run away. Such is the power of the bhakti of the true bhakt. Corona will not raise its head in Bharatvarsh again. We can therefore now look at some of the things that we had lost focus upon in the midst of COVID. And first among them would be to keep India free of those Muslims pouring in from our neighboring countries. Unfortunately, our Muslim brothers from those countries may not be as obedient as the cowardly Corona. So if we stood on our balconies and chanted together, "Go Islam, go, Islam, go," Islam might not quite run away. But not to worry very much. We have another homegrown antidote for it. Our own very Citizenship Amendment Act, the CAA. But in the midst of all this banging of plates and chanting of "Go Corona, go" mantras, we are perhaps forgetting a very deadly, ever-present danger that's been breathing down our necks for many thousands of years now. And that is what I will talk about. But let me keep you in suspense for a while and take up another point first before I speak of that danger. Have you noticed that the coronavirus strikes most lethally the most developed countries? These are the countries with the best hospitals and the best healthcare and the best public health management system in the world, far better than India's. But the virus has, however, affected them the most, and particularly Europe and the US. In Europe, the most lethal strikes of the virus has been against Germany, France, Spain and Italy, which are the more economically powerful countries of Europe. And they all have a fairly good healthcare and public health management system, certainly much better than we have, say, in India, and certainly much better than in Africa and other parts of the third world. And then there is UK, the fifth most vibrant economy in the world, with a fairly well-functioning national healthcare system. But people are dying there in their thousands. And Prime Minister Boris Johnson is on the ventilator. And not to forget the US, the most powerful nation in the world, economically, militarily, technologically, and in every possible way. The US has been hit the hardest. True, Donald Trump took corona lightly until a fortnight ago, but that should not account for the tremendous damage the virus is causing. And we are already speaking of 1 lakh to 2 lakhs possible deaths in the US in the coming months. And now look at the poor, the less developed and the developing countries. They all seem to be fairly free of the virus. None of the poor countries of Africa seem to have been affected by it. So is the case with India. Leaving aside the banging of pots and pans, the fact is that the spread of the virus in India has been insignificant, with poor healthcare and a non-existent public health management system, except perhaps in states like Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. Common sense would have it that India should have been very badly hit, but the fact is that it has not been. This is true of South Asia and of all our neighboring countries as well. Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, Afghanistan, Bhutan, Maldives, Mauritius, Seychelles seem to have escaped the fury of the virus. But when you go to the more developed countries in Southeast Asia, the scene changes. Malaysia has been hit quite hard, and Singapore. These are by far two of the most economically strongest countries of Southeast Asia. South Korea has been badly hit. The disease is flaring up in Japan once again after some initial successes. The Gulf cooperation countries have been badly affected, though they will not admit it. But if the number of those NRIs who came to India and brought the disease along with them from the Gulf is any indicator, the developed countries of the Gulf are also in for it. But you will notice that the virus has not hit Cuba, nor for that matter Russia so much, nor of course North Korea. So why does the virus choose the strongest and the most powerful countries in the democratic world and does the most damage in these most developed countries? Why does it selectively save the poor and the least developed countries? Clearly, there is a pattern. Is the coronavirus a socialist or is it communist? And then, of course, there's China. Having lit the fire, they are now sitting pretty with things under control. That could, of course, be a coincidence. But is it also a coincidence that the virus quickly closed down all the religious places all across the world? Unprecedented in the history of the world. No matter the religion, all places of worships have been closed down. The 2,500-year-old Tirupati temple is shut. Makkah is shut. There will be no Hajj this year. And perhaps for the first time in its history, St. Peter's Square in the Vatican is barred to the faithful. In the religious history of the world, for the first time, all churches, mosques, temples, pagodas, synagogues, gurudwaras, et al. Have been shut. As in communist China, across the world now, religion has come to a standstill. And lest we forget, of the 7.5 billion people in the world today, well over 6.5 billion people believe in one religion or the other. It might seem extraordinary, but is this not exactly what a communist China wants the world to be? A world devoid of religion? Communism being the only religion? Marx has triumphed. Fear has replaced opium. I'm not one who generally believes in conspiracy theories, but this coincidence seems very abnormal. And that brings me to the point that I would like to stress, that if, to give the benefit of doubt, I would still add an if here. If there is a Chinese pattern behind the spread of the virus, then India has physically and territorially the most to fear from the Chinese dragon across the border. But with childlike innocence and steeped in Islamophobia, we focus our hate on Islam and Pakistan while we ignore the real enemy, China. In every interaction that we've had with the Chinese, India has come out the loser, and badly. The 1962 war with China was a non-starter. We lost men and lost land in copious quantities. And of late, we have no clue how much of Arunachal Pradesh the Chinese have already occupied, or more correctly, walked over and annexed. Perhaps even Delhi does not know. The real threat that India faces is not from Pakistan. It is China. It has always been China. It is just that we have been lost in Islamophobia and look at Pakistan as our number one enemy. But the dragon is breathing fire down our backs, and we seem to be blithely ignorant of it. Historically, both India and China are ancient civilizations, each over 3 millennia old, but never have the twain ever met. Through the ages until about a decade ago, you could hardly see an Indian in China, nor a Chinese in India. The divide was watertight. And never will the twain ever meet, ever in future. So when today we posture against Islam and Pakistan, we forget the real enemy, China. With the rest of the economically powerful world, the US, UK, Germany, France, UK, etc., falling like economic dominoes before China, our only line of defense against China has also fallen. These were the countries that were preventing a Chinese crackdown on India. And now that they have fallen, India is now ready for a Chinese picking. China can just walk over into our country today and take it over. And I do not mean only militarily. The West will no longer be a deterrent for China. For the only effective deterrent against a Chinese invasion and annexation of our country, and again I do not mean only militarily, was the fear that they had of the economic and military might of the Western democracies of the world, their economic, financial, technological, and military fear of the US, of UK, of Germany, of France, of Spain, and all those other European countries. But that fear is now gone with the corona. China can walk into India for the asking. And not only in Arunachal Pradesh and Northeast, For there is a huge red Maoist swathe running across the country, all the way down from Nepal and West Bengal, through most of North and Central and South India, all the way down to Tamil Nadu. The Maoists in this belt must be regrouping now, with or without Chinese support. If thus far the Himalayas had been a barrier against the Chinese invasion of India, today it is no longer so. The Himalayas are as useless today as the Great Wall of China to prevent an incursion into the heartland of India. Chinese technology, Chinese science, Chinese economy, and the People's Army have broken that barrier down. China can today walk into the country and enslave it, and there's nothing we can do about it. They can walk in and enslave us physically, financially, economically, and more dangerously in mind and thought. Indians could soon replace Chinese as cheap labor for China. For with the Chinese economy growing and the wage regime there going up, China would need cheap, uneducated labor. And the poor, illiterate, uneducated, mindless Modi Bhakts could soon become Xi Jinping Bhakts. For Bhakts all across history and all across the world only need a leader. Your ideology is tradable. If a stronger leader emerges, they move over to the new leader. And to the new, read Maoist philosophy. While with Tuglakian innocence, Modi exhorts us, his Bhakts, to bang on pots and pans. Like the Pied Piper of Hamelin, the Pied Piper of India leads us, his children, to a Chinese ruin, focusing our minds on trivia and converting the nation into a theatre of the absurd. With his nationwide Sona Lumiere, he makes us make noise, light bonfires, and sing and dance to our doom. Focusing our minds and hearts on lynching beef-eating Muslims, we forget the real enemy. Make no mistake, with the economic ruin of the West, a Chinese takeover of the Indian economy and India's mind and soul, if not the territory itself, is a possibility. That would be a tragedy. And the Chinese would not be as supportive of India's culture, history, beliefs, and the past as the British colonialists were. And once a Chinese takeover happens, we would all not only be tolerating beef eaters and pork eaters, we would all perhaps be forcibly fed some. What with so many starving cattle in the country. And we might soon have such exotic dishes as snakes and dogs and cats and rats and roaches and locusts and spiders at all. That is a prediction, my prediction. But I am lucky that I am usually unlucky with my predictions. My prophecies are self-defeating. They never come true. If I predict something, it usually does not happen. I seriously hope that such will be the case with my prediction of a Chinese takeover of India. I hope that this will also be a self-defeating prophecy. But oops! I have just now predicted that a Chinese takeover will not happen. And if I am a self-defeating prophet, that leaves everything wide open. MP Joseph, I'm a former IAS officer and a UN civil servant for 20 years. Thank you very much.